past the darkness of space, the abyss beyond the universe, Cronoa, the supreme Kai of time, sits with a smile on her face. It was happening. "Frankie, it's happening! You don't want to miss this!" She shouts to the land beyond the time room, the space the Time Patrol ran. Crowds of new recruits came in, their voices barely making it to her ears as she stared at the crystal ball. What's happening? Franklin Richards, the man once known as the Impossible Boy, said, materializing next to what at this point had been his oldest friend. "The beginning! Your world is about to change forever. The place that created you is about to become the place that created you." Her eyes sparkle as she stares at the orb, Franklin sitting beside her. He had seen so much, but if he was honest, he always kind of wanted to see how it started. Near the center of the Milky Way, there was a bright red star, holding two planets that would become among the greatest in the universe's history, regardless of what was about to happen to them, circled in orbit. One of them, once known as Planet Tuffle, was ruled by a mighty species, the Saiyan race, a people once known as the great terrors of the galaxy, monsters incarnate, until the Great Civil War. The legendary Super Saiyan Yamoshi, the first in 1,000 years, fought to make a better life for his people, fought to ensure that his legacy, that the legacy of the Saiyans, was not just one of destruction. It was a battle that he knew, in his heart, that he should have lost, that he would have lost. The evil Saiyans, led by General Vegeta, were ruthless. They would throw hordes of foot soldiers at Yamoshi's people, like lambs to the slaughter, for even a chance at their most powerful. They would send out their troops as bait just to blow everybody away in an area, friend or foe, to Kingdom Come. He just wasn't willing to go that far, but he had something that the other Saiyans didn't. At the dawn of the battle's end, when Vegeta was about to claim victory, their stellar neighbors came to save the day. Vegeta and his Saiyans had always ignored Krypton. Its people were weak, power levels in the teens at best. They weren't fighters, at best they were scientists, thinkers. When Vegeta took over, he was going to claim their planet as well, like the Saiyans had done to the Tuffles before them. He knew they couldn't stop him. They were nothing. At least, that's what Vegeta thought. Yamoshi knew that Kryptonians were great thinkers, and he knew that was the gap the Saiyans needed to close. Saiyans were excellent strategists, great warriors, but their technology was galactic standard at best, nothing more than they need. But Kryptonians, their weapons, their ships were on another level. Something that, unlike the others, Yamoshi didn't ignore. The Kryptonian desire for peace made them highly invested in the conclusion of this war. So, when of all people, Yamoshi himself asked them for help, they pledged him all the support they could, and the Kryptonians arrived, at the battle's near end, helping him grab victory from the jaws of defeat. And just like that, Saiyans took a new path. Their warrior instinct remained, their warrior's path remained, but their title of the Demons of the Galaxy became lost to history. Even the Vegeta family took pride in this new path, generation after generation gaining pride in their species' new title, the Warriors of Light. Named after the legendary light Yamoshi shone in his Super Saiyan form to lead their people so long ago, a form that had long since passed into legend. Well, that should have been the apex of a great dynasty of protectors, united with their sister planet. It wasn't, because of one dynasty, the Frost Demons. Even the Kryptonians had no idea where these people had come from, only that they used to do business with the Saiyans back when their more brutal side ruled their world. And they weren't happy with the lighter path that the Saiyans were taking. The current king, King Vegeta, had been meeting with Krypton's Science Council, preparing for the day that they would have to defend themselves against the great space lizards. Until then, he had ordered his people to play along, follow Frieza's orders to a T, until they had the power to strike back. But one of Vegeta's closest allies, Bardock, saw differently. Frieza had long since been preparing to replace the Saiyans. His newest pets, the Viltrumites, were everything that the Saiyans once were. Strong, powerful, and especially ruthless. Bardock was on planet Cereal when they and the Heaters razed the place to the ground. There were days when he fought on Frieza's behalf, when he would look at the blood on his hands and the faces of his crew as they razed cities to the floor, and would know in their heart that he was a monster. He had never realized just how wrong he was until now. The brutality of those white-cloaked bastards. They were only slightly stronger than the Saiyans at their peak, but they didn't hold back, igniting the atmosphere, launching themselves into the crust of the planet like great meteors. They only restrained themselves so they could sell the planet later. They didn't flinch or even slow down at the people who gave them the respect of resistance. The worst was that mustache bastard, Nolan. The guy gave Bardock the creeps. He never talked unless it was to tell someone just how badly they fucked up. He'd seen him kill his own men on a whim. It was in the midst of this combat when he had seen them. The green-haired woman clutching her child, about to be cut down by one of Nolan's weaker team, that he finally saw it, and he finally understood. In the woman's eyes, he saw the eyes of his wife, and in the eyes of the boy that she clutched, he saw his son. A boy so young he didn't even have a name yet. This was the future of the mighty Saiyan race. The Viltrumites would cut them down to size, the Kryptonians too, if Frieza didn't bother to do it himself. In the end, this, cereal, would be all that was left of them. Their fate would mirror his own planet. Some other species would be living on top of their bones, and that's if they were lucky. "Hey, bootlicker!" Bardock shouted, the fury in him building. The attention of the Viltrumite was gathered as he spun around to face him. Bardock smiled, clutching a device on his arm, one made for him by a good friend, Jor-El, who figured out how to create artificial Blutz waves. Nothing strong enough to trigger a great ape transformation, but more than enough to boost his power 5-fold. Enough to eclipse the power of the Viltrumite in its entirety. Bardock knew they were resistant little fuckers, so he made sure the blast was more than enough to cleave his head straight off his body, the blood from his brain splattering onto the woman and on the ground. He walked up to the woman, kneeling beside her as he offered her a hand. What do you want with us? Why did you betray your ally?" "We're not allies. If anything, I got more in common with you." You razed our homes to the ground, Not because I wanted to." He glared down to the woman's conflicted face. "Right now, lady, you're just us a little further down the line. No Saiyan wants to be here, and I can't change a damn thing about it. But I can make damn sure that some of us get to get out of this alive. That can include you, if you're smart. So take my damn hand and let's go. Or stay here and let the White Cloaks kill you. There's no option 3. Doesn't make a difference to me." The woman, who would later introduce herself as Muezli, took his hand. Bardock sent a message to his crew and his wife back home. If he was going to act, it was going to have to be sooner rather than later. Bardock managed to squeeze Muezli and her son, Granola, away on his private traveling capsule. It was a tight squeeze, but thanks to some increasingly necessary adjustments Jor-El made, they were able to fit, the return trip being more uncomfortable for the trio than they imagined, for more than one reason. Frieza was coming for a trip to their system, 2 weeks' time. The trip Bardock would take back was half of that. Bardock would order the rest of his crew back to planet Vegeta, with their paths diverging when they reached the solar system. "Whatever you're gonna do, old man, you better not mess it up," he would hear Fasha's voice ring through the shuttle's intercom for what he hoped wouldn't be the last time. "Take your own advice. Remember what we talked about. You get your dumbass killed, I'll never forgive you. Same goes for the rest of you shitheads." As he closed off communications, Bardock's ship cut off its trail, its signals, everything that even hid a glance of an identifier as he pulled in, not on his homeworld, but a friendly one, Krypton, just outside the home of one of their greatest scientists. Popping himself out of the cramped accommodations, savoring the smell of air not warmed by baby crap, his wife embraced him. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. She had gotten his message. Thank God. "It's good to see you made it out alive, old friend. From what I hear, many of your contemporaries weren't that lucky." Jor-El of Krypton smiled, taking in his appearance. "And I see you have a couple of tag-alongs." "Something like that," Bardock admitted. "And yeah, half the Saiyans died out there. Casualties of the Viltrumite assault. You saw the message. We need to talk." Jor-El would nod, having seen the official Frieza Force notification along with the rest of the planet, knowing, just like Bardock, what that would have meant for them. Just as Bardock had been trying to convince his own people, his king, that there was no future near enough where they'd be able to fight off this threat before it killed them, Jor-El had long since been trying to argue the same. His arguments fell on even deafer ears. The Kryptonians' pacifistic nature made them far less likely to actually put up a fight. They'd even begun to convince themselves that they could somehow reform the Frieza Force if they had just kept working with them. If they just kept the status quo going, gaining political power within the network. After hearing that, Bardock began to wonder how the smartest people in the world could be so damn stupid. "Did you do it yet?" Bardock asked, clutching his fist to the point that he was even drawing blood from them. running away like cowards was the only option. Every Saiyan on the planet could confront Frieza and it wouldn't get anywhere, especially now that they knew Kryptonians weren't going to help. It didn't make the bitter taste in his mouth go away. So far, we've managed a few crafts, one for your child and an adult, one for Kal-El and an adult, and one for Kara. Your niece? You talked to her, folks? Bardock asked, the look in Jor-El's eyes telling him everything he needed to know. It was the smart play, kidnapping the brat for her own good, especially if her parents were as dumb as the rest of Krypton. No kid should have to suffer for their parents' stupidity. He already hated himself for letting Raditz get dragged off with another unit. He left him a message, a way to find his ship. He just hoped his dumbass son was smart enough. With Bardock's craft, they could comfortably pit one more pair. One that he made very clear to Jor-El would be Muezli and her son. He refused to break his word on protecting them. He understood. It was Bardock's pride in his character as a warrior that drew Jor-El to him, after all. No matter how much of a hard-ass he was, the nobility in the man was nigh undeniable. It did, however, mean that he would have less than a week to develop another ship. In the moment, he seemed fine with it, completely casual as a matter of fact. Bardock shrugged it off. They only needed one more adult anyway. The Viltrumites made that decision for them a year ago. Bardock flinched. Laura L. was a good woman, always willing to say what she believed, never willing to hide. If only she had hid a bit further. Bardock was gonna kill Nolan, first damn chance he got, the second he was strong enough. This wouldn't be the end. 4 days passed since Bardock returned. Gine hadn't left his side. He had nightmares every day since Laura passed. Sometimes, just sometimes, her presence had been able to diminish them, to bring him a modicum of peace. This week hadn't been one of those times. His nightmares increased to the point that he had nearly blasted the roof off of Jor-El's place. He couldn't even train to burn energy off. Doing so would let people know that there was a strong power on Krypton, which would have meant a Saiyan. It would raise all kinds of questions that they couldn't afford to handle. Instead, he focused all his energy on helping Jor-El, as much as he could. He wasn't a scientist, but he could do planet reading as well as anyone else. They needed a place Frieza would have no reason to go, a place so out in the boonies of space that no one would bother looking for them. Preferably, nowhere of real importance in the Frieza Force's war against the Kree or Skrull Empires. He found a handful that fit the bill, but this one, Gine pointed toward a small blue and green mud ball orbiting a yellow star. Why that one? No particularly high power levels. If anything, its people are downright pathetic. Bardock scoffed. Exactly. We can do the most good there. If we have to lose our home, can't we at least make sure that we have a good impact on our next one? We're warriors. We ain't heroes. I don't see why we can't be both. Her smile as she said that stuck with him. Hell, Gine might have well have carved the coordinates right into his mind. He wasn't going to forget them anytime soon. He would have gone to wander the city aimlessly, like he'd been doing, but Kandor didn't exactly have the same punch as anywhere back home. It didn't feel right seeing a place that he knew would be obliterated soon. Besides, something in his gut was twisting, telling him, as the deadline approached, to stay as close to his family as possible. So he just sat outside, even as the rain poured in, swallowing the house of science that had worked to save their lives, until his solitude was interrupted by someone, making him half regret that he had saved her in the first place. Wallowing, is that what we have to look forward to wherever we're going? Muezli asked, sitting next to him. Earth. What? The planet. Apparently it's called Earth. Bardock laid his head on the ground, staring up at his home star for what would likely be one of the last times. Like dirt? Heh, guess so, he scoffed. Fitting. Running away to a dirt planet to stick our heads in the mud, Muezli scoffed back. You here just to make me hate my life? Do you hate your life? Muezli asked, Bardock glancing at her, his sight revealing her crossed arms and pissed-off expression. You were a part of ruining mine, so I damn well hope not. Not willingly, I know. But I still have to live with it. Every damn day when I see your tales, I see the apes that trampled our cities. I see the faces of people I'll never see again. The Viltrumites might have done more, but the Saiyans sure as hell helped. I get it. I'm a bastard. He winced tiredly. No, you don't. I trusted you. I'm living among Saiyans. I left my people to die because I trusted you. And I'm going off to fuck knows where with you because I still trust you. Or I trust the man who saved me, who saved my son, but this? What you're doing right now? This isn't that man. Bardock sits up, locking eyes with the woman. We're about to give up everything. There's no worse feeling, but I'm not passing that down to my son. He won't grow up with my pain, and he's not taking yours. You want me not to be pissed at what's about to happen? Bardock asks. I want you not to be hopeless at what's about to happen, Muezli replies. Bardock glances in the woman's eyes. The fear from a few nights ago was gone. A determination filled them, something far stronger than anything he had in the tank lately. He laughed internally. Hope for destruction. The second time today he heard something like that. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, he saw something. A speck in the sky. And then another. And another. It was happening. It was happening, but it couldn't be happening. Frieza was days away. Then Bardock catches a clearer view. It's not Frieza. The ships are Frieza Force, but the clothes. Bardock and Muezli quickly make their way back to Jor-El and Gine, who at this point have already taken notice. Frieza was only scheduled to appear on Vegeta. The Viltrumites were close to Krypton. They would be Krypton's end. Bardock enters the coordinates on the pods one by one, careful to chart their path away from those bastards' line of sight, with as little power on takeoff as they could so that they wouldn't notice. Hopefully. He forced his son in his wife's arms as he shared a look with her. I'll be right behind you, he promises as she nods, tears dropping down her face as he drops her in her container, the pod thrumming to life as it blasts away from the planet, twinkling in the distance. He did the same for the cerulean pod. Muezli glared at him, Granola clutching her leg, watching him. The usual suspicious glance the kid had hit him with was gone, replaced by one of petrifying fear. You abandon us on Dirt World and I'll drag you out of the afterlife myself to kill you. She glared at the man who met her glare with his own, shoving her into the pod, it too thrumming to life, flashing into the distance. He glanced back at Jor-El, ready to send the old man on his way with his son, only for him to place the young Kal-El in his arms. Bardock glared. If anyone should have been traveling alone, it was him. He should be the one taking the... For the first time, Bardock noticed there was no other ship, no other shuttle beside the others. The hell did you do? You didn't think this short time was enough to make a whole new vessel, did you? Honestly, it might have been, but I wouldn't have taken it. I can't give up on this place. Not yet. The hell? What about your son, you idiot? Bardock barks out, getting within an inch of the scientist's face, only now seeing just how tired the poor bastard was, how much Frieza had shattered the man's soul. He deserves more than a broken father. Buildings crumbled to dust in the distance, the meteoric impact of the Viltrumites' bodies detonating them, sending them to ashes in the dirt. Bardock placed the kid in the pod as he stared at the one leading the destruction. Of course it was him. Nolan. I'll send your kid off, and we can go die together, you stubborn old bastard. Bardock got to his feet, checking the device around his wrist. If he pushed his capabilities, he could maybe get the device to 7 times his power output. He had a feeling the peaceful life his wife thought of wouldn't be able to mesh with him anyway. Dying on his feet, like a warrior, it felt right, like what he was supposed to be doing. He only hoped his squad weren't as dumb as he was planning to be. Tightening the band on his forehead, he turned to Jor-El, only to see him holding something at him, some kind of strange remote. With the press of a button, Bardock began feeling woozy, so out of it that he could barely see straight. Blood swabes are an interesting thing, old friend. Enough of them triggers the Great Ape transformation. Too much and a Saiyan brain can't even stay conscious, Jor-El explained, a sad smile on his face. You piece of... I had a feeling you'd try something like this. You're more stubborn than I am. I'm going to miss butting heads with you, old friend. Though, I suppose I won't. Those were the last words Bardock could make out from Jor-El as his eyes closed. Jor placed him in the pod, putting Cal atop his lap. Tears stung in his eyes as he caressed his son's cheek. My son, you will not remember me. I will fade from your mind's eye. But you will grow up. You will live. You will thrive. That is all I could ever want for you. He walked away from the launching grounds to his lower levels to find what he had actually been working on since Bardock came back. A suit. He always theorized that the light from a yellow sun could have an interesting effect on Kryptonian physiology. It took him a long time to figure out how to copy the radiation from that star. There was no better time to test his little hypothesis than now. King Vegeta could only watch as his sister planet was torn from the sky. Bardock was right after all. He only wished he could tell him, but apparently he was dead. According to his crew anyway, who had also mysteriously disappeared only a few days before. He wasn't an idiot. He knew what they had done. And he approved. It was why he sent his own son off after all. Even if it was amongst those damn Frieza soldiers. He pressed a button on his scouter, a message shooting off into the stars. On a channel he made damn sure Frieza didn't know about. His Kryptonian friends had helped him with that little pet project. Vegeta, I know you won't be able to respond. I know they're watching you like hawks. Those bastards won't even be able to match you eventually. My time will soon come, but you and your allies will burn brighter than the sun. Never let your pride fade. You are vengeance. He finished his response, not expecting to hear anything back. Raditz, that little runt, Prince Vegeta said, as prideful as the king had ever heard him. I got rid of him. He was slowing us down. I trust you don't have a problem with that. If you do, I can always demonstrate. Got rid of him? He sent him away. King Vegeta smiled. His boy was watching out for his own. With that kind of devotion, he would build a loyal following. The Saiyans would rise again. But before that, they would have to fall. Thanks for checking out Earth OCU, everybody. I really hope you liked it, and I really hope to see you again. Bye-bye!